you doing on your merit badges?
I want to do all kinds of good things.
It's the wanting. Pain comes from always wanting things. But what do I know? I'm a murderer.
Welcome to Cut to Black, a Sopranos sit down. My name is Jim Scampoli, and I've seen every episode of The Sopranos.
My name's Jacob Burrows, and I've also seen every episode of The Sopranos. And don't worry, this is not a spoiler podcast. You can actually listen to this, even if it's after the film's released. This is just our trailer 2 reaction and our last bit of hype before actually fucking finally getting to watch this film. We're here to have a quick little chat about it. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I think what you're getting at is that, yes, we've seen every episode of The Sopranos. We have not seen the film, The Many Saints of Newark, which we've anxiously been anticipating for a year, I guess. Because, yeah, it was supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out last September, but obviously 2020, things are not happening. Then it was going to come out in March of 2021. So it was going to come out 6 months ago or whatever. Bumped it again, but now here we are, finally on the cusp. And from my understanding, I mean, you Eurotrash get it before us Americans. This American show, we're coming in at the end of America because we get the Sopranos movie. What is it, a week later from you guys? When do you get it in Ireland?
I believe we are going to have it as soon as the 22nd of September. So that's about a week beforehand. Yeah. I was Googling this right before we started. I was like, why does this keep happening? It must be very frustrating for you, Jim. I only remember this really happening with big releases, obviously, but like even going back years, the likes of Star Wars and similar, back when we cared about Star Wars, they'd always more or less come out earlier here. Did you ever get really upset about it and maybe like punch a wall? Did your fist go through the wall?
Yeah, then I just eat some gabagool and smash my phone and and I feel much better. Yeah, I don't even know why that's a thing. I guess I don't know if it has something to do with piracy or whatever, but I don't. It is bizarre. Do you guys? I mean, I assume this is true. Is it the same HBO Max deal? Like, do you get it on streaming there as well, or do you not know?
I don't fucking know, man. But it is in the cinemas here, which I wasn't sure if it was,
because that could be part of it. Yeah, that could be part of it, because I don't know if I should have looked into this. If because I know a lot of different countries don't get the same streaming deal that we're getting, and obviously once this goes to streaming, the piracy is going to be like way easy. Just get a pristine. Not that Tony Soprano or myself would ever co-sign this, especially for a Sopranos movie. But it does feel like, there'll be a pristine HD version ready to go online. I do want to see this in theaters, though. I am that guy. I like to go to the theaters. The only difference, though, is the thing that usually in the States here, you'll like a movie comes out on Friday. So Many Saints of Newark comes out Friday, October 1st. Cut to Black Sopranos Sit Down, brought to you by the Many Saints of Newark, coming to theaters Friday, October 1st, and streaming on HBO Max.
Wednesday, the 22nd of September, the big release Wednesday, we call it in Europe.
But usually the day before, like with theaters on Thursday nights, they'll do like the early screenings for like the super fans. And I like to go to those. Like they'll do like a 7 o'clock or an 8 o'clock where you can go see it on Thursday night. The only thing I've noticed is a lot of the HBO Max releases don't do that. I don't know if it's because they're thinking like, well, we promised day and date with streaming, so we have to release them on the same date. But then I think Suicide Squad, they did Thursday screenings, so I don't know. The thing that's going to happen is if they don't do Thursday screenings, I will be up at midnight watching this movie at home. So that's the difference. But I do have myself a Tony Soprano movie theater. I'm not trying to brag or anything. I got a projector. I got a popcorn.
I always think of Tony and his little media room sitting there in misery, and I always picture you there in equal frustration, even though that's only to like get through the day for me. I'm sure you're fucking loving it. But I'm just like, fuck Jim over there with his Tony Soprano setup. As far as the release dates and that, I did Google it right before the show, and like at least everywhere I came to had a different answer. So I was like, I guess maybe there's not one clear reason, but a few of the ones that were outlined that kind of make sense is that every movie would have a specific window to be released in order to get maximum profits, right? That's always going to be the case. And that window is going to be different in different countries. I don't know why it's usually earlier in Europe. There's things like competition with other movies, where they stagger releases around the world because it allows them to get the maximum profits. Publicity. I don't know how this makes sense, though. It's always earlier for us. But anyway, I'm not complaining about it. All our movie theaters have been extremely closed for a long time anyway, so I don't even know if I'm going to be able to go to a theater, but hopefully I will. If not, I will do the same as you at midnight or whatever time that is for me and try to get through it.
And I mean, not to get too bogged down into these like incidentals or whatever, but I did think it was interesting. I almost thought they were going to maybe bump it up because as far as like US release dates, there's been all this stuff going on, obviously, with COVID, and if theaters are back, if people are comfortable going to theaters, where movies were underperforming. But I think Candyman did okay as like kind of a mid-tier release. And then, of course, Marvel movies always do great. Shang-Chi came out at the beginning of this month, and it did really well. Whereas the movie Venom 2, which is, thought to be a big blockbuster movie, was initially coming out October 15th, or maybe it was going to be pushed back to next year. They saw Shang-Chi do well, and they bumped it up to the 1st. So it's actually coming out against Many Saints of Newark. So I almost thought, no, maybe they're going to bump this movie up for us then because they don't want to. But I assume the HBO Max people, they're like, well, whatever. We weren't banking on big box office either way. But then again, I mean, this should be an event. This is an event. This is a Sopranos film.
And maybe like not everyone seems to think that, but at least Rolling Stone seems to think that. We were just flipping through the fucking special edition with lots and lots of different interviews, like a real treasure trove. It's like all the interviews are by this guy who did the Soprano sessions, right? You read that, I did not.
Yes, Alan Sepinwall. Which Alan Sepinwall, he's like our competition. We should have the Alan Sepinwall. Like he's kind of known as the Sopranos guy now. He put out the Soprano Session book. He's doing all these interviews. He's like palling with David Chase every chance he gets. He's sitting down with David Chase, talking his ear off. That should be us. But yes, there's I've only like scratched the surface. If you go on the Rolling Stone digital edition right now, there's plenty of interviews, plenty of information. I was reading through one, and was getting a little worried because I'm not one of those guys that's like super worried about spoilers, but I also don't want to know too much.
Yeah.
And they're delving a little bit. I'm not saying they're spoiling the film, but they're just delving a little bit into some of the timelines and a little bit of the plot, which I don't really want to know. But
yeah. No, I was going to say similar for me. I read a little bit. But I was also like, I might dive deeper into this just once I've seen the film. Because oftentimes I won't even watch a trailer, right? And obviously now we're doing this chat, we're going to get into the trailer that they've put out and everything. But yeah, it's really great stuff anyway. Like really interesting, especially like I read the interview with John Bernthal. That's how you say
John
it.
Bernthal. He plays Johnny Boy, yeah.
Yeah, and like it's just really fun to read. It's less about the plot, more about just him growing up and wanting to be on The Sopranos as like his one thing. Like before he wasn't anything, trying to get on to be like an extra on The Sopranos and not getting it. And I feel like there were similar themes in some of the other interviews, but just like it was really really nice and really interesting and really like apparent even through a Rolling Stone interview that. For this person anyway, for him, like they really he really cared, and you could tell that a lot of people really cared about what was going on the set. Now I've made things where I've really cared and they still turned out shit, but it's still like from the way they're talking about it, it seems like a good production to be involved in, and like he's playing Michael Gandolfini's dad, right? And and Michael Gandolfini is kind of playing his own dad, and it was just like about the themes of fatherhood and how Michael Gandolfini at the end of filming gave him like a watch that was his dad's watch and all this nice stuff. And I was like, this is great. Yeah. So is a good interview, and I look forward to going more in depth on it after watching the film.
Yeah. I was digging a little bit into it, and Vera Farmiga, who plays Olivia Soprano, the mother, she actually did audition for The Sopranos to be Valentina, Tony and Ralph's mistress there, but did not get the part. But hey, it works. Things happen for a reason. At least from the trailers, it looks like she's nailing the Livia part. But then again, I mean, this is probably something we'll get into a little bit more when we like kind of go over the trailer. And I think we maybe touched upon it when we were talking about the first trailer. What's the danger of like it being too much of someone doing an impression of someone? Like, do we want, but like, I think a part of us does want that though. We want them to like, just totally just try to nail the impression, do it exactly like the other actors did it, or we're going to be upset. And also a part of us is also like, well, don't do that. But you kind of have to, right?
I feel like that danger is most prominent with Michael Gandolfini. Like, regardless of how good of an actor he is, and his resemblance as well, but like, regardless of both of that, Tony Soprano as a character is just so iconic that there's a lot of like fun people on TikTok or Twitter doing impressions of Tony Soprano, but they're all impressions, right? They're all comedic, and I'm like, I have a hard time seeing how you can do that but serious, and I think the key would be to do it understated and not get too close to like doing a cartoon, because I think that is easily the case. For some reason with Livia I would be less worried because she's so I don't know why I'm less worried about that, but I feel like even if she delivered her lines in the same biting sarcasm or whatever, like obviously there's a lot of depth to her as a character, but it's Tony that I would worry about that with,
Yeah, I agree. And I did read, like, kind of in passing, they mentioned that Michael Gandolfini has fake teeth in to make it more like Tony's teeth or something like that, which I thought is weird. And I did even think in the first trailer that, like, the way he talks seemed a little off.
This is what I was worried about. Mainly the talking.
Yeah, like, not to nitpick, but I don't know. It's a weird choice, but it also is so David Chase to be like, we gotta get fake teeth in there. What's up with this guy's teeth? And I did want to pull one thing from that article, because you mentioned a cartoon character, because they do address this a little bit, is that they're trying to find that line between like Saturday Night Live impression and a performance. But they do call out that David Chase did have Tony Sirico record all of young Paulie's dialogue for the actor to listen to it. And getting David Chase, because he explains that Paulie is the most cartoon-like. The way he talks, his gestures, all this stuff. Nobody can touch his hair, the stories, the way he bugs his eyes out when he's surprised. Great expressions. It was sort of beyond doing. So maybe with Paulie, they do want an SNL
that intentionally. But I could see that. And usually, like, from my understanding, anything where you're doing like a line reading to an actor and going like, do it like this, it's a big no as far as really like telling someone how to do their job. They are the actor who should be doing the job, right? And you as the director shouldn't be doing that. But this is different, right? It's literally the person who embodied the character for years, and hopefully they're not like, say it exactly like that. More like, here's the inspiration, Yeah.
Well, and also David Chase touched upon a bit, like, because he is in an interesting position. They don't get too into detail, but he was dealing with some family health issues, which is why he did not direct this film. I mean, he did write it. Well, he wrote it with a co-writer, Lawrence Connor, but they brought in, was it Alan Taylor? Yeah, Alan Taylor to direct, who directed Game of Thrones episodes. He directed Sopranos episodes. He directed some bad movies, though. He directed, I think, Thor: The Dark World, and that one of the terrible Terminator sequels. So don't get your hopes up too high. But he, mentioned he couldn't direct it, but he's still obviously on set. but he was in this position where he didn't want to, he's still the writer. He wants to make sure he's giving the director proper, authority on set. Yeah. He doesn't want to step in and be like, well, actually, but he wants to be there with if Alan Taylor gives him the go ahead to, direct a little bit or give his opinion, or if the actors do specifically ask him. Because John Bernthal was saying that like he would do takes or something, and then he'd like look at David, Chase, like, huh? Yeah. And he's like, well, David would just give me nothing. He just like stonewall and be like, oh, that's good. But he'd also described himself as an actor that would sometimes change lines a bit, where I don't know if he's doing it because he feels like something fits better here, or he's in the moment. And there would be times where David Chase he'd be like, no, like don't change the line. But he said it in a good way, where he would be able to defend his position and specifically spell out why lines are the way they are, etc. So really interesting to kind of get a peek into the process. I still have this shrinking suspicion that David Chase, I mean, we've talked a lot about David Chase, obviously, discussing all this episodes of Sopranos. And I feel like there's a part of David Chase that he finished The Sopranos in 2007. He's been asked about a movie all the time. When are we going to get a movie?
Can I guess what your thing is? That he's just doing this as a big fuck you, and it's going to end with a big fart or something like that. Like, not exactly literally, but more like, yeah, you wanted a movie?
No,
fuck yourself.
That's absolutely where I'm going, is that even if it's not that, I feel like there's a part of David Chase that's still kind of like, oh, you want a fucking Sopranos movie, huh? All right, I'll give you a fucking Here's a fucking Sopranos movie, okay? Here's what you're going to get. You eat it and you fucking like it.
But I hope that we're always saying that that's some of the best of The Sopranos, when he's like, oh, you want this, fuck you, and you can't have it, or you get it but it's not what you want. Like, that is also a way to subvert expectations, right? And hopefully not just by making a shit film, but rather by turning it a bit on its head, what you're expecting. Or maybe we're completely overanalyzing it, because watching the trailer, I'm like, this seems pretty straightforward, right? I mean, the plot of the film that I'm imagining, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it'll be solidly put together, but I'm also like, I don't really expect major twists and turns from where the plot goes. But the difference has always been with The Sopranos that not necessarily big twists and turns in the plot, but twists and turns in what they choose to focus on and what they choose to hang on and make important. And that's kind of the interesting thing, that both of these trailers are made a certain way that looks like a really engaging film, but that's where there might be something unexpected in what are we really honing in on telling a story about here? How many dream sequences are we getting? That sort of thing.
Well, and even by his own admission, he did say that David Chase did say, and maybe it's not even so much that he's trying to fuck with us and fuck with our expectations. It's just the way the movie's marketed, because he did mention that like the initial trailer or some of the initial marketing, the way it's like, legends are made, and then it's Michael Gandolfini or young Tony Soprano, where he's like, that's not the move. And we had that suspicion when we watched the first trailer. Obviously that's going to be an element of the film, but it's not going to be what the film is. Like, if someone's hoping to get the Star Wars prequels of Tony Soprano, rising to be Darth Vader, I don't think that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, and that's what you said as well when we watched the first trailer and talked about it, that, it really seems to be selling that. But everyone who's been following it knows that it's like Dickie's film mainly, right? I mean, that's kind of been, it's in the title of the film. Like, it's the Maltesanti film. So, yeah.
And then he did also say, to backtrack a little bit, he's pretty bummed that it's going to streaming at the same time. Because he wanted to specifically make a movie. I'm sure the option was on the table to do a Sopranos prequel series, but he wanted to make a film. But now they're even talking, like, Vera Farmiga's like, that would be a dream if they decide to make this into a series. Like, they're already mentioning, will there be a sequel? Could they do a series of this? And that type of stuff. I know it's almost like you kind of have to do it as like marketing. And don't get me wrong, I obviously love The Sopranos. I would still love if they did that, but I kind of also don't want them to do that.
Yeah, well, especially like it took years of convincing to get, well, I don't know if convincing is the right word, but like years of everyone asking for it for us to get a movie. And it's kind of indicating that this wasn't like the passion to tell this story immediately. And that kind of built over time, and the idea and everything. This is all kind of just my assumptions, but like it took a long time to arrive at the point where David Chase was like, you know what, a movie would make sense, and I'm happy to do a movie, and I think it will add to the universe. And then to go like, fuck it, let's do 5 seasons of a new show that's, you know, The Sopranos in the fucking 80s, and you're like, whoa. Yeah, no, I agree. I would watch it as well. But it's also maybe if there's not enough of a point behind it, I don't know. But I totally understand that feeling of like, shit, it's going to streaming after all these years where The Sopranos was always made for the small screen, even though it like is really aspirational and really like set the bar really high for other shows in like what's possible to do in the format. It's still like it was always on television, and movies are different not just in their structure and length, but like in how you can consume them, and that does sort of impact what sorts of what sort of storytelling you can do in them successfully. So one of the reasons I definitely want to try to watch it in a theater if possible.
Yeah, and one of the things I really appreciated that they brought up, and it's a small detail, but David Chase was pretty adamant that it be like 2 hours or under. And this is more just my thing with movies in general these days. Like, and it's mostly kind of like, I'm not trying to pick on Marvel. I love Marvel movies. I'm sure some people would even scoff at that, but I can't deny that some of these movies are too fucking long. We don't need these 2.5 hour movies. So I appreciate like when a movie's like, hey, we could do this in 2 hours. We could do this in 90 minutes. Hell yeah, let's do that. So I do appreciate that. But I guess we could get into this trailer here.
Well, yeah, if I could just fucking vent for 1 second. I am like in the midst of watching Alexander, the film about Alexander the Great from 2004 for our other podcast on the network, Real History, which you can find at showswhatyouknow.com or just search Real History. But we're going to talk about Alexander the Great. And this fucking film is so long, like it's 3.5 hours, first of all. And it's...
Jesus.
We're gonna get into detail on how shit it is, but we haven't recorded the episode yet, so I just have a lot of pent up feelings that mirror yours on the length of films. Honestly, this film shouldn't even have been 90 minutes. It shouldn't have existed at all. It's really bad. I think it's turned a lot of people against historical films, because if I watched that, I'd be like, well, I don't ever want to watch anything with fucking togas again, because it's dreadful.
Wait, who's in that movie?
Colin Farrell is in it.
Oh, Colin Farrell.
He's so bad in it. Like, I don't think he's a bad actor, but he's really bad in it. But yeah, that's an aside.
Okay, yeah, let me pull it up here. Wait just a minute.
Before we get into it, do you want to guess which part of the trailer I hated?
I would guess the end of the trailer.
You are correct, sir.
I kind of hated that as well. And there's actually some other reasoning behind that I want to get into as well. But let's see what we got here. I kind of don't love I mean, I get what they're doing, but we're already nitpicking, because I was going to talk about the musical choice with like I Want Money, but whatever. We'll see.
What do you want, Richard? I'll be honest with you.
I want money.
I want to do a good deed. I want to do a lot more.
The best things in life are free.
I try to set an example for my nephew.
Give them to the birds and bees. I want money.
Anthony got kicked out of school. I went through all that trouble, and for what? I'm always being accused.
You gotta be good.
I mean, that is, yeah, of course. That is a great delivery. I mean, that's a perfect delivery. You can't deny it.
And Tony's always like, that's such a line from Tony as well, right? Throughout the show, of like him always being accused. I think this is the same house we've seen in the TV show, I think.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Like the one where later on Janice lives. She kills Richie Aprile there. I mean, spoilers for the. I assume we can mention spoilers for the Sopranos show here, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's that house which is fun to see, and the delivery, I actually that was kind of a line that got me a bit worried. Where it's a good delivery, but I it's also it's good in itself, but I could see how we don't see any actual acting happening. You know, if it's like, how well can you pair that with actually acting, or are you just imitating? And that's what remains to be seen.
It's on the line. Like it tickles my fancy as a fan. But that's they knew exactly what they were doing, putting that part in there because he's nailing Tony. But there's still without, obviously we don't have a ton of context. It's a 2-second line, but you could see how that could teeter into what we were talking about, like more of like an SNL impression, like a guy on TikTok being like, "Hey, Tony Soprano, gabagoo," or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
I do want to say it is great to see Ray Liotta. And this might mostly be based on, I didn't read a full interview with him, but I read an excerpt of an interview with him not too long ago, and he was talking about how, like, obviously The Irishman came out. What was it? Was that in 2019?
I think that's right.
Yeah. The Irishman came out, and it was heralded as, like, you know, Scorsese and De Niro and Pacino. Well, not Pacino, but Pacino's in it. And Pesci were back, and he was talking about how he was like kind of bummed that he wasn't a part of it. Like that. I mean, because like obviously using Goodfellas. And the De Niro Pesci thing is above Goodfellas, but he kind of felt like, oh man, like I didn't get the call, like I wasn't like invited to the party. So it's kind of like bummed out for him because he's like an old man.
Like when really like cool people that we like and admire get to go on Talking Sopranos and we don't. It's kind of like that. Like we're happy for them, but like we could also do that, you know?
All right, let's go back here.
That's what I want.
I want to do whatever I can to help the family.
That's what I want. Money don't get everything, it's true. What it don't get, I can't use. I want money.
Wonder what they talk about in there. I didn't catch the name.
Pussy.
Put him on the table.
I think I just got this jacket.
So, well, one thing I want to get into is, like, we mentioned in the first trailer, we see like a bald Silvio, but I think we also see a wig Silvio. But then I'm also confused, and this kind of ties in a little bit with the end. I always thought that Tony and Silvio were like around the same age, but I feel like this is kind of saying that Silvio's older. Or am I reading that wrong?
No, I thought that too, and I will be honest. Like, I hesitate to say this on our Sopranos podcast because we have there's so many really dedicated Sopranos fans that get into the nitty gritty of the structure of all of the families, and I've watched some videos of people breaking down these trailers and sort of going into detail. But like, my brain just doesn't connect all the pieces to who everyone is, you know? Like, if you're listening to this at home, you probably have seen the trailer, like, probably more than once. But, like, I would need it kind of explained to me a little bit that that's Christopher's dad and his grandfather in the first bit, you know? Because I know that now, but it's when there's more characters than that, when there's like 4 or 5 characters on screen, I'm like, oh yeah, is that Silvio? No, that's Paulie, or what's happening? And I'm ashamed to say that, but it's just like, even watching The Sopranos, you all went through it with us, and I'm gradually figuring out who these characters are, and I feel like that's going to be like, it's only when seeing them in the film that I'm able to, I feel, properly distinguish them. Which, anyway, that's kind of a side thing, but you were saying that
it's weird because I agree with what you're saying, like, because there are some people, obviously, they get really like technical and specific with like pointing out who's who and whatever, and then I think we play a middle ground of that. Like, we like to talk a little bit about like the essence of what's going on, and then we also get a little specific. But I think that puts us, again, to go back to David Chase, that puts us in a little bit better graces with David Chase, because I don't think he likes those people. Like, even though David Chase is very detail oriented, I don't think he likes the super specific people, and to an extent, some of the stuff I'm going to point out, because there's two main things that I was a little confused on. It's how much older is Silvio than Tony, and how much older is Tony to Christopher, because I don't feel like, I know we're jumping ahead, he's supposed to be as old as he is when he's looking at Christopher as a baby. I think he's only supposed to be like 10 years older than him or something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But Michael Gandolfini is supposed to be Tony at like 18 or 17 or whatever it is. I don't think the age discrepancy. But then again, I could see David Chase being like, who gives a fuck? I'm trying to do whatever's best for this story. I want this. He's going to care more about the story, which is right by him. He's not going to worry too much about the specifics of like, shit, Tony's older than he should be right here. He's like, I don't give a fuck. I want to tell this story. Like, do you think that's how he'd come from it? He'd come at it?
Yeah, you're totally right as well. I was just Googling it now real quick, and in the Wikipedias for each, it says Tony's born in 1959 and Christopher is born in 1969. So yeah, you're totally right in that it's quote unquote supposed to be 10 years, but I could totally see that perspective from David Chase of like, oh wow, yeah, you went really in depth on this TV show I wrote, and you wrote all this shit down, huh? Yeah, well, guess what? None of that's real anymore. No, that person just got the person's age wrong. Fuck you. It's my world. I make it canon now.
Because it would make sense that, if Tony was born in like 59, if you're thinking the Sopranos show kind of takes place roughly like season 1 is taking place that year of like 1999 or whatever, 2000, he'd be around 40 when the show starts. And Christopher would be like late 20s or whatever. But again, like these are nitpicks, and you're right. I could totally see him being like, so what? Because I'd be like, excuse me, Mr. Chase, in the movie Many Saints, you had Tony Soprano almost 20 years old, and Christopher Moltisanti was a baby. And he'd be like, so what? What about it? They do even mention in one of the articles that they did try to pack a lot of like Easter eggs, but I could see that in a David Chase type of manner, because they talk about like obviously lines of dialogue and even maybe seeing some of the stories that we've heard in the show, the family stories, but you're not going to see them particularly how they may have been told on the show, because he says how, memory is a tricky thing. Like things happen different ways than you remember them. Like he could totally play around with it that way.
Mm-hmm. And I also was reading that Silvio supposedly born in 1957, but then I was also read like, according to The Sopranos, a family history, and I was Googling that, and I was like, is this even canon? Like, is this speculation? Is this real? I'm not sure. Have you heard about The Sopranos, a family history by Alan Rucker?
I have not.
I don't know how
a guy made, or was it supposed to be something put out like officially?
See, that's a great question, right? I'm not seeing many details, but I'm sure the experts out there will already be well familiar with it. But that's what I was thinking anyway, that according to that, which sounds right to me, that he was born in 1957, like a couple of years older than Tony. That's the impression I got. To answer your original question of how old Silvio was in the show, or seemed to be in the show.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe it'll be, from the, again, I'm just going by trailers, so it could be different. It just feels like they're putting him more in Paulie's age range, which still would make sense, because, we did see a lot of like Silvio and Paulie buddy in the show here and there, especially when he kind of confides in him about like, the Skip going to see a psychiatrist and whatnot. And not that this matters, because like the actor they cast is 38 to play Silvio. And I know Michael Gandolfini is he's obviously in his like early 20s, and he's supposed to play like 16 or 17, which we've seen him many times. Anyways, back to the trailer.
I try so hard.
Gotta do something about Dickie Malasani.
What's below?
That's what I want.
I know you can get anything.
Look at Dicky Moltisanti. He steps up, takes care of his family, takes care of all the bases.
If anybody tells anybody about this,
How you doing on your merit badges?
I want to do all kinds of good things.
It's the wanting. Pain comes from always wanting things. But what do I know? I'm a murderer.
The best things in
Okay,
I
pause
do
it
love
there.
that.
Perfect end to a trailer. No need to put anything
Yes.
else after it.
Yeah, no, it's very true.
The line feels very Buddhist, like that pain comes from wanting things and desire. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about where, you know, in the version of the film that I imagine from the trailer, it's just like, you know, this action romp. There's a bit of moral dilemma, but that's it. But then there's the potential of a really David Chasey version where he hears this thing about pain comes from wanting things, and then Dicky Moltisanti starts reading a Buddhist text and starts, you know, much like Tony and his quote from the wall of the hospital, starts saying all this shit and having dreams about it. Like, that's probably an exaggeration. I mean, it's definitely an exaggeration, but like, there's bound to be some of those very Sopranos-y elements that are like, yeah, we know there's going to be cool action in this because we've seen some clips of it from the trailer, but we should also remember how The Sopranos was always marketed in television commercials, showing, you know, the same murder 4 times, that, you know, there's one of these scenes in a season of television and it's exploring many other things beyond that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, you gotta just, well, I love that, and then even like, what do I know? I'm a murderer, because it's you know, hinting at the kind of humorous side of things, and obviously The Sopranos, very funny show, always nailed it with like the wit and the comedy. So it's nice to see like a little piece of that. And I mean, they must have just been so psyched because it's like, it's so perfect after, you know, Tony and Christopher are such a big part of the show, you know, uncle and nephew. And here's the natural, like, way to play that out again with Tony, with a young Tony and his uncle Dickie, and how that, you know, informed how Tony came to be, or the person he came to be. So yeah, a lot of great stuff to mine and play with there. And then of course we have this ending part.
Yep.
life for free.
Tell myself a son.
Hi, Christopher. Hello.
Okay, all right.
It's like a scam or something.
Some babies, when they come into the world, know all kinds of things from the other side.
That's what I want.
Ooh, like what?
Ugh. Like, that probably plays fine in the film, you know?
I agree. Yeah.
But it's just, and if it was only about like, oh, you're going to be a bad man in the future and the baby can tell, that'd be fine too. But just specifically knowing how Christopher and Tony and their storyline winds up, I won't say it just in case you haven't watched The Sopranos and you're listening to this for some reason. It just feels too much like nudging and winking at the audience. And I'm not honestly opposed to that nudging and winking. Like, there's stuff like you were saying about, there's so many potentials for Easter eggs in a non-obtrusive way. Like, Junior says, "Oh, what a blow," and that's the same line he says at Olivia's funeral in the show, I believe. But like, this is just like, you know, you guys know, and that's, you know, fine. But it's just that it's what we've seen distract from good stories in so many prequels. So it's kind of the thing, it's not necessarily bad in itself, but it just often gets in the way, and I trust them not to let it get in the way, and I understand why you'd put it in a trailer, but I still don't love it.
Yeah, and it's more so, I think we've done this before, it's the action is more anything we've seen from The Sopranos or David Chase or anything like that. It's just in this era of legacy sequels, prequels, reboots, remakes, whatever. There's been too many eye-rolly things that it's hard not to have a little apprehension, even though obviously we trust people that made the greatest TV show that to ever exist. A bit more than that. It's just it's still hard. It's still hard not to be worried. Like, oh, they're gonna ruin it. Don't ruin it. Please don't ruin it.
We've just been stung before.
Yes, exactly. But we're back for more. Excited. I mean, it's still a great trailer. I can't wait. I'm ready.
I can't wait either, and I don't have much more to say right now. I can't wait to dive back in and discuss it. I think when we do our first, I don't know how many episodes we will feel like doing on the film, but we'll definitely do a big one. We should definitely do a spoiler-free section at the start, so not everyone's going to have a chance to watch it at the same time. Maybe you want to wait until you can see it in the theater or whatever, or you're in, a region where it releases later. We're going to have a spoiler-free section, which we sometimes forget to do because in the TV show realm, it's not really relevant because we've gone through them episode by episode. But when we discuss movies, when we discuss a whole season of a TV show, it just makes sense. I have to say as well, we are recording this on what would have been James Gandolfini's 60th birthday. So,
I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to say happy birthday to the king.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, James Gandolfini. What a man. To El Capo himself, which we still have to go back. We were going through some of his films, not a lot of great ones that we've watched so far, but we still got to go through more of the we got to celebrate the Gandolfini catalog for sure.
Yeah, and I think we watched we watched a couple of ones that were not very good, but there's definitely good ones, right? Because I remember saying, like, you'd watched some that you liked, I believe. Like, he's always great, as we keep saying in our coverage, but it's also we didn't keep up with it. So there's James Gandolfini films to be watched now that we've concluded finally our Godfather saga. What are they? Coda, the whole Coda. There's other mob films to be discussed as well, with their connections to the Sopranos or not connections, like differences, contrasting, and just the interest in the whole area of film and television. So it's more content to come, but obviously the next time you hear from us, it will be about the Many Saints of Newark.
Absolutely, I'm psyched. Although, I mean, there's a small possibility when the next time we speak, we're gonna be like, oh wow, oof. Oof.
Yeah, and we'll tell you like it is, unfortunately, to our own detriment. If people love it or not, like, we have sunk many a podcast by being really negative on certain shows that really deserved it. And you've rarely heard it on here because we're talking about The Sopranos, the best television show ever made, quite possibly.
And that reminds me, please review our show, because like on that same topic that you're talking about, I made an offhand comment about like Better Call Saul when we discussed the last trailer, and apparently upset this guy who gave us a bad review, which really fucking annoyed me, because it's not even that I was saying that Better Call Saul is a bad show, but there are moments in Better Call Saul, like specifically the reveal of El Polo's Loco that we were talking about at the time, is a little eye-rolly, or it just didn't make sense from someone if maybe they didn't see Breaking Bad. Either way, I'm just this guy, this fucking idiot that decided to, I guess, listen to our discussion of the Many Saints trailer and heard one somewhat not fully celebratory offhand comment about Better Call Saul, and he was so in a fur that he had to go on our fucking page and give us a 1-star review. And he's like, oh, knew everything that I could. Actually, I'm trying to pull it up real quick.
Should be fine. I think it's the latest one.
Yeah. Don't like Better Call Saul, eh? Hold on. Just give me a minute. I don't want to misquote. I don't want to misquote this gentleman.
It's very funny. It's very funny to me because for once it was actually relevant. Like, sometimes we'll just shit on some shows to go like, oh, The Sopranos is way better than this or that. But this is genuinely a relevant comparison of the difficulties of navigating doing any kind of prequel, and like reveals and interconnectedness. And these guys don't like this Better Call Saul. Fuck them.
Yeah, from TTH Hart, which I'm not gonna lie, I tried to Google it to see if I could find who he was.
Putting a price on his head, very sort of mob style, yeah.
To see if he had a podcast or something. And he even titles it BCS, which I guess, yeah, Better Call Saul. You didn't like Better Call Saul? That's all I need to know. Good luck, fellas. And then he put some cry laughing emojis. What a fucking idiot. What a fucking stupid motherfucker.
So we're not bitter or anything. So this is all to say, please, if you feel up for it, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you have already left us a review, thank you so much. I'm sure there's another device around, like maybe you got a partner or something. Grab their Apple device. Just give us a quick review. Much appreciated, no matter where it comes from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but right now, you're right, though. Before we went on that tangent, we're in a Schrodinger sort of cat situation where The Many Saints of Newark is both a masterpiece and the worst film ever made and everything in between. And next time we talk to you, we're all gonna know. We're all gonna know. So I can't wait, but there is a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of apprehension for sure.
Yes, and I feel like even if I'm not gonna say we don't nitpick. We definitely nitpick. That's part of the discussion, but especially something Sopranos, we heap praise on it, and it's rightfully done. We're not just doing that; it's rightfully deserved. But even if we have an issue with something, I feel like it's never like this sucks and that's it. We kind of try to talk it out. So, yeah. So if we don't like the movie, don't give us negative reviews because of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll like the movie though. We're gonna like it. Don't worry. We're going into it excited, ready to like it. But on that.
But until then.
Yeah, I guess there's just one last
more thing to say.
Yeah, what's that?
God, we're out of practice. Cut to black.
Cut to black.